Man, we've been spending quite a while trying to figure out how powerful this switch system is, and we've used ways of determining this by comparing it to different tablets and systems and processors, and we have teraflops and gigaflops. But what if there was a system we could use that is actually really close to the switch, what we think the specs are going to be? And I remember there was a system I was thinking about for a while now, and I finally figured out what I was thinking about, okay? And it actually is very close to what we think the switch is going to be. It's actually using an X1 processor, it's actively cooled, and it actually uses very, very fast RAM, and Nvidia is designing it. So this device is called the Nvidia Shield Android TV, okay? And it's been out for about a year now, give or take, and it went into development a while ago. Nvidia has been making that X1 chip for a while based on the Maxwell architecture, and I wanted to go through it, guys, with you, see what we can figure out, and kind of explain the specs and stuff that are going on with this system. So let's go ahead and get started now. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly put the specs up here. It's based around the Android TV, and it's also going to show that Shield tablet that is also very similar to that Pixel C that we talked about the other day. And if you look here on the Android TV, the Nvidia Shield, you're going to see it is using that Tegra X1 chip. And what's really cool is it's technically 8 cores in that chip, and it's using 4 of the Cortex A57, and it's using 4 of the Cortex A53, so it's 2 quad cores in there, and it's using that in its little big design, so its big little design, so it's using a quad core A57 for high-speed applications like gaming and 4K streaming, and then it has that Cortex A53 quad core it's using that for things like idle processes, possibly even 1080p streaming if it's not super taxing on the system at the time. And what's really cool is it's also using 3 gigs of DDR4. Keep in mind, it is low powered, but it's also running at 3200 megahertz, which is great. That's very fast. And it's only using 4 gigs, guys. I know people are always saying it needs 8, it needs 8, it needs 8. It doesn't. Okay, this system is extremely powerful, only needs 3. If we get 4 for the Switch, that's amazing, if you consider that, okay? So, again, going further down, it does support 4K at 60 frames, which is great. HDMI 2.0, of course. If you look a little further down, this is interesting, the power adapter is 40 watts. Now, that's actually pretty high for an ARM chip, okay, guys? The Tegra GPU-CPU combo is a very powerful chip that actually does require a good bit of power. Of course, it can be downclocked and cores can be turned off and things to save power, but when it's at its peak, it uses a lot of power, okay, guys? If you look further down, we also have AC wireless, Bluetooth 4.1, basically all the bells and whistles, has an IR receiver, which is cool, gigabit Ethernet, which is very important. I'm hoping the Switch has that as well, but based on what we're seeing, it probably won't. Okay, so we're through all of those specs, okay, guys? Now, what does that exactly get the system? Well, it makes it extremely powerful. In fact, if you look at the Shield tablet a little further with the K1, you'll see it does have a lot of advantages over it, including 256 CUDA cores as opposed to 192 CUDA cores. It is using, like I said, that LPDDR4 compared to the LPDDR3 of that Shield tablet with that K1, same one as that Pixel C, and both are 64-bit. If you look further down, the floating point 16 peak is 1024 gigaflops. The floating point 32 peak is 512 gigaflops, which floating point 32 is what the Xbox One and the PS4 are graded on, essentially. So the X1 is a little further back, of course. We are seeing the X2 supposedly seeing a theoretical limit of close to 1 teraflop, but we'll know a little more, like I said, when we actually get those in our hands, since no one has them right now. Okay, and it is smaller at 20 nanometers compared to 28 nanometers. Of course, technology, the dies keep shrinking. The X2, I'm sure, will be even smaller than the X1, and more efficient, of course. It won't eat as much power. Okay, so looking at the Tegra X1 Maxwell GPU, again, we're seeing Pascal in the newer system, hopefully, with the X2. But if you look down, it is twice the performance per watt as the Tegra K1. Again, we're going to keep going down to where the wattage gives us more power with the X2 as well. 256 CUDA cores, like I said before, and it does support that low-power DDR4 RAM, which is great. It makes it much faster, okay, guys, compared to low-power DDR3. Okay, and in the CPU configuration, it does use that basically 2-processor combination, the big little, and it is very, very efficient with its A53s to where it only needs 3 to 4 watts to run, which is really good. Okay, guys, it's very good. And that's all for those, but we do have benchmarks, and the benchmarks are interesting. I'm going to explain why. The benchmarks you're about to see, it's pretty much the same down the board for all the benchmarks, okay guys? It's basically using a 3D Mark Unlimited overall score. So it's everything. It's the GPU, it's the CPU, it's the RAM, everything built in. And you'll see the Shield TV outperforms the Surface Pro 3 handily. Like, it doesn't have any problem with it, okay? It's of course basically comparing it to other systems that use ARM chips as well, including like an HTC One M9, of course newest one there, S6 Edge, Air 2, iPhone 6 Plus, and you'll see it pretty much runs away from the competition no problem. And that's to be expected against phones and stuff like that. But the Surface Pro 3 is using a Core i3. That's actually really impressive if you consider that, guys. So we do know this X1 is exceptionally powerful. There's no question about it. It's a very strong CPU GPU. And we're seeing the X2 supposedly put out even stronger numbers and better performance in terms of wattage, okay guys? And what's really impressive about this, okay guys, getting down to it, you want to know what games it can play. And of course the big question, if you build a PC or anything like that, whether it's a joke or not, it's always, can it run Crysis? Okay, and in this case, for the X1, the Shield TV, the answer is yes, it can run Crysis. Okay, so the video you're seeing, well, about to see now, I'll put it up now, is actually from GDC 15, Game Developers Conference 15. And Nvidia really wanted to show the power of the X1 here, okay guys? It was showing off the Android TV, and of course it wanted to show it what you can do if you program directly for it. Of course, people are gonna have to port games to it, but based on what a lot of people are saying now, it's not super difficult to do. And what you're seeing is basically what they do is they set up in GDC, they'll set up different panels and rooms you can go into. They'll put a certain amount of people in there and they'll kind of show it off and explain it to them. In this case, they actually had Crysis 3 running natively at what we believe 1080. It's on a 4K TV, probably upscaled to 4K. I can't imagine the X1 can do a 4K Crysis 3, guys. I don't even think the Xbox One or the PS4 as it is would be able to do that. I think it would have to be to the PS4 Pro using a checkerboard upscale to do that. But looking at it here, you see how well it runs. I mean, it runs good frames across the board. I don't know what the settings are either though. I can't tell. There's no description for that. I'm sure NVIDIA didn't even tell them what settings it was running. But the fact that you can run Crysis 3 on the X1 gives us a ton of hope for the X2, because the X2 is going to be more powerful. It's also going to be more efficient. Okay, it's not going to be the same if you put out an X2, because it's going to run on Pascal architecture, which is more efficient than Maxwell, which means you can push more power per watt, which means if more watt goes in, more power will come out. So the same 20 watts or so that it does pull will get them more power. So, and of course, the chip will probably be further performance heavy because NVIDIA is designing it custom for the Switch beyond the Pascal architecture, you know, beyond just developing it for like a Shield TV or something. They're putting a lot of engineer hours into this. Okay, hundreds of engineering years apparently into this. So expect the X2 to be much more powerful, especially if it's customized directly for the Switch. So here's the thing though, okay, Crysis 3 did not come out. It was, in my belief, a tech demo to attempt to lure companies in, pull them in, and say, hey, look how powerful this chip is, do you want to use it for something? And my belief here, okay guys, is that NVIDIA and Nintendo had some sort of meeting at one point after this GDC 15. I believe Nintendo saw this, saw how powerful the X1 was, and met with them, and that's why Crysis 3 was not further developed and eventually released, because they didn't need to. Crysis 3 was only going to be developed and released in an attempt to pull companies in, and that's why we have not seen another Android TV beyond this one. They don't need to make it anymore. They found their cash cow essentially with Nintendo. They're going to develop the hardware for it. Nintendo's characters are going to be on it. It's going to have NVIDIA technology in it. They don't need to make their own stuff anymore. Nintendo's paying them to make it. So that was their goal initially, was to do that, was to build this device with powerful hardware to show off and eventually get a contract of some kind with a company to build for them. So they did it. I mean, it worked. Crysis 3, 1080 more than likely, good setting, good frames. It got them in with Nintendo, so that'll work. Here's the thing about this system though, guys, and it's interesting to me. It is actively cooled, which means it has a heatsink, it has a fan, and it needs that to keep the temperatures down. So the Switch will probably need, okay, because it is going to be even more powerful, will probably need some way to cool the device when it's on power. When it's on battery, it probably won't need to be cooled. It's probably not a big deal. It can probably, so if there's a fan inside the tablet, maybe that turns on when they plug it in and then turns off when you unplug it after everything downclocks and voltages and everything drop across the board. Or, like I said before, maybe there is a way that they have like a vent system with the dock has an actual fan in it that pushes air up through it, okay? That's the only other thing I can think of, because it will more than likely need a way to cool this thing. There's no way it can run passively with that kind of power. It's just not possible. Unless they figured out some magic or something that I don't know about. More than likely, it needs a fan. And guys, I wanted to revisit another topic real quick. I know it's been beaten to death, but obviously the X1 can play Crysis 3, 1080p natively and everything, with 3 gigs of DDR4 RAM here, guys. People tell me it needs 8 gigs, it does, and I'll leave it at that. Low power 4 gigs is plenty. DDR4. Nintendo needs to put DDR4 in there, guys. If they kind of skimp out and go DDR3, it won't be good. I think they need DDR4 RAM. 4 gigs is enough. Pair it with the Pascal architecture, and we will have a beast of a handheld on our hands here, guys. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the price. Okay, this Android TV, guys, the Shield TV, comes with a controller, and it comes with a remote as well, from what I could tell based on what all the reviewers are saying, okay? And the price is good. The price is very good. For this device, when it first came out, like I said, about a year ago, the price was $200. Again, it came with a controller, a Shield controller, it came with a remote, and of course system and everything, and that was when DDR4, low power even, was very, very cutting edge, okay? And so it was probably more expensive with that as well. I think Nintendo could use the X2 chip, use the DDR4 RAM, and package it all together, and I think they could push it out at $250 and still make money on it. I think $250, guys, is becoming more and more realistic as I research and look into this topic. So I think we're in good shape with the price. Even if Nintendo put it out at $300, I think people would still buy it. I don't think they need to do that. I think $250 is plenty, unless they package games with it. Like if they package 1 or 2 games with it and put it out at $300, that's not bad then. But I think $250 for a base unit is very, very reasonable here. So the other thing that I guess to say is I actually sent Nvidia an email asking to see if they could send me like a demo unit of the Shield TV. I know it's kind of older now, maybe it's not as big of a deal for them anymore. And I was hoping I could take it apart and we could actually get face-to-face with the X1 and really look at it and see how they have the active cooling set up. That's the most interesting thing to me, is see how their active cooling is set up and see if it's something that they could put into a tablet. So I sent them an email, the PR department. We'll see if they actually get back to me. If you guys want, you can bug them on Twitter. Maybe I'll send them a tweet as well, seeing if they'll send me one so I can take it apart and check it out. But that's it for today, though, guys. I think we're in good shape here. More so than like I said, as I keep researching the topic, I think the Switch is going to come out and it's going to surprise a lot of people with its power. Again, it will need to be actively cooled or there will be thermal throttling here, okay? So I think based on what Nvidia can push out with this X2, I think we'll be in good shape in terms of power and power consumption, okay? So, but yeah, guys, definitely like the video if you enjoyed kind of hearing about the tech side of it and kind of getting some predictions based on what power we can expect here. And definitely like it if you enjoyed seeing the X1 play Crysis 3. I thought that's pretty cool. So, and subscribe, because more stuff's coming. News, technology stuff is always around the corner for me. I'm always filming, so definitely subscribe and check out all my videos and everything. And follow me on Twitter. It's @SpawnWaveMedia, and I will see you guys next time.